Hi, this is Aubrey with Knitting by Aubrey, and today I'm going to show you how to do a hat loom. And there are different sizes of hat looms that will make different sizes of hats. So I'll walk you through it and let's get started. Here are my set of hat looms. They are honestly about 10 years old and they are Nifty Knitter brand. They have the hat loom dimensions and steps and all their other products. A set of hat looms typically comes with 4 looms, and you'll need scissors, a pick, and a needle like this. Here's a newborn loom. This is very, very small. Very small. Here's the next size, and it's for a large baby or a small toddler. This next one is for large toddlers or small children. This next one is for children and adults. This is the one that I use the most. Today I'm using the large baby or small toddler size, and these are my supplies. Here's the yarn I'm using today, and typically you want either bulky yarn or 2 strands of medium yarn. You can choose what you like. It works really well with a bulky yarn. To start, I'm going to take the end of my yarn and I'm going to wrap it around the little peg on the side. This thing helps keep your yarn tight and in place. Next, I'm going to wrap the yarn around the first peg. I'm going to put it on the back and wrap it around the front of the peg, and the yarn will cross in the back. This is the most basic kind of stitch that you'll do on a hat loom. You are going to continue to wrap the yarn around each peg until you get back to the beginning. Once I have wrapped the yarn once, I'm going to push it down so it's at the bottom of the peg. Next, I'm going to wrap a second thing of yarn around each peg, so each peg will have 2 loops of yarn on it. Now I'm going to take the pick and I'm going to grab the bottom loop and pull it over the top of the top loop and peg. This creates one stitch. The first row is going to be extremely tight, and so don't worry if it's super tight because that's just how it is. Once you move on, it will be looser. I'm going to use the pick on all of the bottom loops until I get back to the beginning. We are done with our first row. That's awesome. Now I'm going to take the remaining loops on the peg and push them down to make room for another round of yarn. Now I'm going to repeat the same steps over and over, and this will make your hat longer. So I'm just going to continue to wrap my yarn around and around. Here's a tip. If you do this one to the left of the side peg first, it will keep the yarn in place so you don't have to hold it. So now I can let go. And then I'll just continue to use the pick on the pegs around and around. To make our brim, I'm going to have 16 rows. So stop when you have 16. Here are my 16 rows. You can see that it's longer now. And you can keep track in your head, or you can actually count your rows. And it looks really cute. I love this pattern. And the yarn is really soft and it's just really nice. I like to look at the inside of my hat to count the rows. So I just go down and I count however many I have, so you can double check your numbers to make sure they're right. Okay, now I'm going to untie the yarn around our side peg. You can just let it go. Now I'm going to take that yarn and grab it from the inside and pull it up. So we are folding our work in half. And you can also wrap this around our side peg again so it stays in place. I'm going to find the bottom edge, and there are loops in between each stitch. So I'm going to take the bottom loops and I'm going to put them on our pegs. This is folding our work in half and going to create a very nice brim. You only want one loop on each peg. Sometimes you have to go back and check that you don't have more than one loop on there, so make sure you double check it before you proceed with the pick. See, I kind of have to undo some of it and try to get one loop on there instead of two. I'm going to do this all the way around. If you don't want a brim, you don't have to do this part, but I've found that brims make it really pretty and professional looking. Plus, when you're wearing the hat, it's easier to wear and it doesn't roll up. And so the brim keeps the hat staying on your head. Once you've gone around, you're going to look at the lines and you're going to make sure that they are straight. Sometimes you get mixed up and put the wrong loop on the wrong peg and it creates kind of a diagonal line instead of a straight line. So this is how it should look, and you've got to double check this. All right, to finish our brim, you're going to take the bottom loop and you're going to use the pick to pull it across the top. And this is also going to be kind of tight and kind of weird, but it's okay. This is how we finish our brim, and we can continue on with our hat. Since we knit 16 rows and we're folding our work in half, our brim is going to be about 8 rows long. So you can have a shorter brim or a longer brim depending on your preference, but I like to do 16 rows so that my brim will be 8 rows long. Just like that, our brim is finished. Awesome. So now, look at it. It's so good. I love it so much. After our brim, you're just going to wrap around the yarn like normal. There's no more folding or anything like that. So I'm just going to continue, and this will be 1 layer of yarn instead of 2. You are going to continue making rows until your hat measures about 6.5 inches long. Here's my hat. It's getting longer, and you can definitely see the progress that I've made. It's very cute, and you can see that the brim blends really smoothly with the rest of the hat. You can also see kind of the seam, kind of like the seam of our hat that we made, and so that's okay. You can see the inside. It's excellent. Now I'm going to measure our hat. I have a measuring tape, and it's a little over 6 inches long, and you want to make sure that you measure the top clear to the bottom of the brim. Sometimes what I will also do is turn it upside down, kind of close it, and kind of see how it would be if it was closed. So you can kind of estimate. If you don't have bulky yarn, number 6 yarn, you can definitely use 2 strands of medium or number 4 yarn. You just wrap it the same way you would the bulky yarn, but then you have 2 strands. So when you are using the pick, you gotta make sure that you get both strands of yarn. To take the hat off of the loom and finish it, we're going to use our needle, and you want all of the loops to be up high on the pegs. We don't want to push them down. So you're going to take your needle and some yarn, and you'll thread it through the needle. I'm going to cut off my yarn from the yarn ball, and I'm going to leave a few inches so that I can tie knots. Just cut it. Take your yarn ball and thread some yarn through your needle. I like this needle because it can fit bulky yarn. Sometimes the eyes of needles are really small. So it's really nice if you can find a needle with a big eye to get that bulky yarn through. Some tips for this part are to twist your yarn super skinny and to use your fingernail to shove it through the eye. Okay, we're going to start to kind of sew this shut. So I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to put it up through our loop and take it completely off the peg. I'm going to do this all the way around until all of the yarn loops are off of the pegs. And make sure that your yarn doesn't slide out, or else you're gonna have to redo all of it. That's kind of why I have the yarn still attached to the ball, so it doesn't slide out on me, and so it can just stay and I can cut it how I want. Awesome, now our hat is kind of off the loom. You want to untangle it from the loom so that both the hat and the loom are separate. Okay, at the top of the hat we have our needle. I'm just going to pull that off. We don't need it anymore. And we have 3 strands of yarn here at the top. There's 1 strand of yarn at the bottom by the brim. I'm going to turn my hat inside out because we're going to tie some knots, and I don't want those knots to show on the good side. So make sure to untangle your yarn and make it inside out, just like this. Here's our 3 strands, and we're going to focus on the right one and the left one. Just leave the middle one alone. I'm going to take the right one and the left one and pull it tight. This will start to close the top of the hat. You really want to pull tight so that there's not a little space in the hat, or else why wear a hat if there's a hole in it? So make sure to pull it tight, but don't pull too tight that the yarn breaks, because I have had that happen and you have to redo it. And if your yarn is still attached to the ball, you can cut it off so you can start to tie those pieces together. I'm going to tie a square knot, and so I'm going to take the right strand and drape it across the left and tie it in a small knot, and all the while I'm pulling it really tight. As soon as you secure this knot, it's not going to be able to move, so you want it really tight. Once it's tight, you can drape the left strand over the right strand and pull it tight, and this will create a square knot. And I really like square knots because they're really easy and they're really solid, so that's why I'm using it. Sweet. Now we're going to address the middle strand, and I like to just tie it with both the left strand and the right strand. So I tie it to the right strand in a normal knot, and then I take it and I tie it to the left strand in a normal knot, and that just secures everything. Just make sure that your knots are tight. You don't have to use my methods, but this is how I do it. And then I cut it off. Make sure that you don't cut through your knot and you don't leave too much of an end. Awesome, the top is finished. This is what it should look like. No holes. All right, let's finish the bottom. And so I have just 1 strand here. And so I'm just going to use this 1 piece of yarn and loop it and put its own end through the loop. This is how I tie a knot with 1 strand. And I like to put my finger on where the knot will end up, and that keeps it really, really tight. And so I'm going to tie this at least 2 to 3 times. I really don't want that knot to slip in between the stitches and somehow poke out. And so I'm tying it at least 2 to 3 times. And now you cut it. Make sure that you don't cut through that knot, because I have done that before. Yay! Now we can turn it right side out and your hat is done. Look at it, it's so pretty. I love it. And so this is the simplest way you can make a hat on a hat loom, and you can definitely do no brim or add the brim or even a pom-pom on top. I love pom-poms, and so it's really fun to make a pom-pom and sew it on top, especially for like a child's hat. And so this is the size of it, and you can see that it's for a large baby or a small toddler. It's really better to do a larger size of hat than a smaller one. With these looms, you can use any kind of yarn, any color, and you can do stripes and different stitches. It's just so much fun, so I'll make some more videos on that. One thing I wanted to add is that I also have this kind of loom, which is also by Nifty Knitter, And this you can make scarves or blankets on, so that's really cool. So these two looms are super easy, they function the same way, and they're awesome.